Hello, everybody. My name is Steve. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June the 14th, 1985. My home group is Three Legacies Nashville. And wow, Chris actually got a hold of me earlier this week and asked if I was available sometime this month. And I thought, I better jump on this because otherwise I'll have too much time to think about it and it might become a presentation instead of a share. So here we go. Um, I am Well, first of all, let me just say I want to thank all of you for being here, what you've added to my life, especially during the pandemic, and getting to know you all has been really great. It really has been. And now that things are starting to kind of unclench a little bit, I've gotten to meet some of you in person, and it's just been such a privilege. Anyway, thank you for what you've added to my life these last few years. I don't really feel qualified to do this, which I guess makes me qualified. I don't know. But I will say that the one thing I do feel good about being able to share with you is that I think I've done more growing in the last 5 years than I did in the first 32. I really do. And it's nice to be able to share something with you that's current. Not all the great stories are in the rearview mirror. There's a pretty great story unfolding minute by minute. And I think that's kind of what the spiritual life does. And I just love it. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've decided, because I've listened to a number of people do this workshop and a lot of different approaches have been taken. And the best I can come up with is to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey, and then try like heck to bring it back to the essay a little bit as best I can. And we'll just kind of, and you can tell, you can tell, you can tell me I messed it up at the end. That's perfectly fine. I'm the I was the youngest of three boys. We were all half brothers. Mom married and divorced six, really troubled men over the years. Alcoholics, drug addicts, mental illness. I mean, and that was my family history right there. It's just a lot of stuff back then you didn't talk about. Alcoholism, abuse, drug addiction, mental illness, and it was all over the place. As for me myself, once I got to know the family tree a little bit, I'm just your classic grandfather was a drunk, it skipped a generation. Here I am. You know, Nothing special there. But it's really funny if you see the picture of my two brothers and I growing up. We don't look anything alike, and the oldest is the shortest, and the youngest is the tallest. I mean, genetically, we're just all over the place. But I didn't really have the energy to call them my half brothers. I mean, we stuck together somehow, and I can remember some of my earliest memories were um, moving out in the middle of the night, and mom we'd move across the country, and she was playing pretty fast and loose with her creditors is what it was. And I always thought, why can't we move in the daytime? It's so much easier to move boxes around when you can see what you're doing. Anyhow, I must not be the brightest bulb. I didn't figure out what in the heck was going on until I was sponsoring a guy in jail. Uh, and he told me about rent jumping and what that looked like. And I'm like, oh my God, that was us. Anyway, it was just childhood. And that, I don't think that makes me an alcoholic or anything. It's probably good, good material for therapy, I guess. But what makes me an alcoholic is about the second time I took a drink, the magic happened. And I don't have to tell you what the magic is. It's like somebody invented air. And I mean, in a very short time, I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol. I couldn't imagine it. It's like I was born without that special something, and alcohol gave it to me. And fast forward about 7 years, and I got sober, and it was the mid '80s, and I was a mess. I weighed in at about 130 pounds, maybe just under. I was 5'10", and I just looked like I was just dead. It was really funny. One of the guys in the early meetings I was at, and I lived in Southern California at the time, he looked at me and he said, "Jesus, you look terrible." And I remember thinking to myself, how am I supposed to look? I mean, what? Anyway, it was anyway. It was what it was. I got sober there, and I'm very thankful that some things tumbled the way that they did. The '80s were a really interesting time to get sober. Some of you were around then, and what is it? Clancy used to say a treatment center on every corner and a counselor behind every bush. But it was quite an environment. Anyhow, um, I was able to get sober without them. And it was really interesting because I heard a lot of things in early sobriety that weren't especially helpful. Like if you don't remember your last drink, you haven't had it yet. It's like, I was a blackout drinker who was playing with a lot of hallucinogens. I mean, the exact dates are elusive. Uh, and anyhow, just all kind of stuff like that. And anyway, I shortly after moved to Arkansas, and it was really fun talking with Rick here recently. It turns out we have some people in common. He used to live in that part of the country, and anyhow, I spent the first 5 years there, and I had the privilege of getting into the big book a little bit with Joe and Charlie, and getting a nice introduction. And the beauty of that is that even with all the roughness of being a young person and being sober, at least I knew there was a solution, and that it was powerful, and that it was bigger than I could ever put a finger on. So good things were starting to happen, even though from one moment to the next, I'm pretty sure I was losing my mind. But I don't know what's it supposed to look like when you're, a 20-year-old with 3 years sober. What does that look like? I got to tell you all something that's really funny, but it was kind of instructive. Recently, I was at a meeting in a correctional facility, and I was talking to the guys. We're just doing the new beginner meeting format, talking about the 12 steps, and one of the young bucks, he catches on to this, and he says, you know, removing character defects. He said, "What about lust?" And I thought, oh my God, he looks like a young guy. And I said, I never asked this, but how old are you? And he says, 23, sir. I just died laughing. I don't know which part was funnier, the 23 or the sir. But anyway, I don't know any way to get over being a young person other than aging out of it. I don't think there's any dignified way to be hormonal, and I'm done trying to figure that kind of stuff out. I'm not going to try to explain my frame of mind. I will say that I survived it, and that what happened at about year 5 was that I was at it's just about year 5. I was at a conference in Little Rock, and I heard this guy by the name of Bob Olson speak, and oh my gosh, I thought, oh man, that guy not just knows Big Book, he really believes it, and built a life on it. I want to get to know these guys a little better. And I got to meet his sponsor, Don P, later that summer, and he just impressed me mightily. And that's more the story than we have time for. I find myself going off to the Pacific Northwest for graduate school, and I instantly run into one of Don P's sponsees. And I thought, okay, I see the hand of God in that. I'm going to get with this guy, and it worked out pretty beautifully. We started to work together, and as all the bumps and bumps and bruises that go along with being a young person trying to do this thing, yeah, they were there. But he started to share with me this is how we do things. This is how we belong to a home group. This is how we are dependable. This is how we say yes and see it through. This is how we be. Anyway, that kind of stuff. And he gave me and I was a system guy. And I know, Rick, that word just somehow tricked something in his brain, but the system was pretty good. What it looked like is I would meet with my sponsor once a week at the same time and place. I'd go to 2 other meetings a week, one of which would be a home group. I would be a real participant there. In other words, go to the business meeting. I'd get a service position and see it through. And after I was done going through the book with him, I would help others as he had done with me. Not a bad system. I realized that it prejudiced me in some ways, and that were really hard to untangle later. But I think I've made some progress there. I really do. I will tell you that I'm a I'm a boring married guy. I am. I've been married to the same woman for 18 years. I colored between the lines. I'm not up to anything exciting. And I really like that life. I didn't know that was me. But it turns out it is. And God gave me the grace to see. By the time I got married to this woman, I knew what a commitment was. And I think what an amazing thing. I think things like love and commitment really travel well. Being right really doesn't, because I moved a lot in sobriety, and I like to think I'm done moving, but that's really not up to me. But there, tell you what, let me see here. I was up in the Northwest. I did not distinguish myself particularly, but I did find myself in a profession which I'm in today, which has been real good to me. And so I've got this, real steady type life, which I really appreciate. And I've had a 2-year job pretty much all the time that I've been sober since starting to work with Sam. And that's been a big part of my life. I really believe that traditions mean something. My home group, we're a Three Legacies group, and we study steps, traditions, concepts, and speaker meeting and big book. And we're the world's slowest big book study. We're very proud of that. And anyway, we had a fifth Thursday last month, and so we were talking about the concept 9, where it talks about leadership. And I just think to myself, you know what I'd really love to do with this workshop is take that reading, and let's just take all the speakers we've had from the top and let them tell us about that. Of course, I got to tell you, with the lineups we've had here and just the quality of members, we could sit here talking about Winnie the Pooh and I'd be all in. I mean, you guys are that good. I love you so much. You've added something so substantial to my life. And I think what was happening is sobriety was starting to get thin. And I hadn't really learned a lot new in a long time. And I had some prejudices that were, some of them make sense. I tend to not get really close to people that aren't helping others, because, that have been sober well, that are not helping others. It's too painful to watch what happens next. It just is, and I realized that this system had kind of prejudiced me. It's like, wait a minute, are these the only people I can talk to, or the ones that are busy? And if they're busy the way I understand busy, and I realized my world had gotten small, and I wasn't exactly sure where to go with that. And that's made for some really interesting inventory. And the thing is, I still believe in the system. I believe in reading the big book to people, and I believe in, saying, hey, this is what I expect of you as a sponsor. If I'm going to work with you, I need you to do A, B, and C. But I think what it's really about today, it's about love. It's not about performance. It's not about fitting the description. It's not about being a good system guy. And dear God, it is not about making me look good. It's about love and giving you what you need, because it's tough out there. Alcoholism is a miserable thing, and that's one of the things I will always be thankful for, is that Sam got me into institutions work, and I could see the people over and over again. I've seen them in meetings. I've seen them in detox. They just, are making the weary rounds of institutions. And that's not my life. That's God's grace right there. One of the funniest stories ever, and I'm trying not to be self-indulgent, but I can't help it. There was a place me and the guys used to carry the message out in North Idaho, Cottonwood Minimum Security. And they got the pickle fish, which are the new guys that come in, right? And they changed their jumpsuits from a halfway dignified purple to a screaming safety yellow. And I remember sitting there with the pickle fish and going, guys, I'm not here to tell you that your life is unmanageable, but you can see your jumpsuits from orbit. So anyway, do what you want with all that. But really, that's just the funny part. The truth is, I think like them, I drink like them, and I get to leave and they don't. That's God's grace. That's the only difference. And I've had that understanding for years, and I'm very thankful for it. It's so clear. I think I will always do institutions work. And anyhow, um, but now it's more about how do I do this with love? And you know what I've really enjoyed lately is just letting these guys know, because a lot of them have been sober before, many of them for more than a year. Say, people, we don't shoot our wounded, man. You're just behaving normally for an alcoholic. We can do this. And I just love what God does in the lives of people that will just do the work. It's just amazing. Too many stories to go into, but all of them are pretty great. I wanted to say that Bill Wilson talked about dependencies, and I think it's a tough call, because how do you know what you're dependent upon until something blows up? You know what I mean? Did you depend too much on a sponsor and he dies on you? That was my story. Did you depend too much on looking a certain way or having a certain lifestyle or being liked, or these things, do they mean too much to you? And how do you know until it blows up on you where you really are? And I don't know. I will say that I'm not here to tell you where you need to be. Oh, dear Lord. I barely know where I'm at half the time, but I will say this. I've been able to keep growing, and that is the thing that I am most thankful for. There's still something to get excited about, even after all these years. It's a funny thing. I got I listen to this radio station sometimes in the morning, and it's a bunch of music you don't normally hear, good music. And the idea is I don't want to just reinforce my prejudices by playing the same old oldies and stuff like that, but to try to pick up something new. And today I picked up a song I'd never heard before. It was a Delbert McClinton, I Ain't Old, but I've been around a long time. I thought that's pretty cool. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to do now spiritually, is just not just reinforce my prejudices, but learn some new stuff and then sit with it. And actually rereading some stuff that I was given along the way, and see what it looks like now that I have a more stable meditation practice and I'm kind of more calm and settled in. But Bill talked about these dependencies, and all I can say is I don't know, but I sure know what mine looked like. And that was that I didn't realize how much I depended on Sam until he died. And suddenly I was a little bit adrift. It's a tough assignment to be 30 something years sober, and suddenly it's like you need a sponsor. What do you do? It's like, that's a good question. And I started working with Thomas because I needed somebody who was within arm's reach that I could really talk to. And we had already kicked around a little 10th step here and there, I think. And so I had no idea what I was getting into. He kept dropping these names, and I'm like, okay, it's these people he knew in AA, Richard Rohr, and I'm like, spell that, Rohr. Okay, and I started investigating and practicing and doing it. It's just the coolest thing. And I do want to say that accidentally, maybe, you guys have given me the answers to some long-standing things just by the stories you've told. I felt really awkward for a long time about the homeless guy, that's on the side of the street, and it's like, okay, I can't avoid him, right? I got to stop at the red. Here he comes, right? And just, I now have a couple bucks just for him. I'm not going to go looking for him, but I'm not going to duck him either. I got a couple of bucks just for him. Thanks, MT. Okay. Let me just share what's kind of been happening more in the last few years. I was a pretty good soldier, not bad, a little intense. But I think I was a pretty good soldier for a long time. I take the barnacle approach to sobriety. I'm just easy to find. I'm at my home group like 50 times a year, maybe 51, depending. Uh, that's my style. Not nothing fancy. I go to at least one other meeting a week, and well, more than that now because there's just so many good ones. But that's how I do sobriety. And so I'm a pretty good soldier. I take my turn. I make the coffee. I open the place up. Not all the time, but I'm regularly there in time enough to help out in any way I can. That's just what you do. No big story. And I like to think I set an okay example, not a stupendous one, but an okay example. It needs doing. Um, what I can tell you is that things got really interesting when Sam died in 2018, and I had to find another sponsor. What's interesting is how my pride almost prevented it from happening. I almost couldn't ask him. Isn't that interesting? I almost couldn't ask him for help. I was talking about Tom here. I almost couldn't ask him. I was just almost couldn't do it. And if you were to ask me why is that, I couldn't really say. Gotta be pride, I guess. And we started to work together, and I started to wake up to some things. And Thomas and I, we're kind of interesting because, like, we have the big convention in town this weekend, and we're going to sit around and smoke cigars and abuse the speakers, and it's a good time. And anyway, we're talking. We talk a lot about different things. And one time he asked me, he said, "Tell me about I never hear about your father." And I said, "I have no idea about my father." He says, "Oh, okay." He tells me this story, and Tom just can't stop himself on and on with the stories, right? And it really did get me to thinking. And what happened is I was at Fox, Arizona in 2019, which is an amazing event. And and it was one of those 90-second shares after the main workshop. And a lady shared something that just broke me. It's not my story to share, but something inside of me just cracked up. I was never the same after that. And I started to think maybe I need to re-examine something here, because I had a lot of anger toward these men that had just kind of paraded through our lives as a young man. It's pretty hard not to. Um, but I gave it another look, and I said, let me take what I know now, run these guys through the inventory process, treat it like just another resentment, and just see if anything happens. And something did happen. In the fourth column, I realized that I had a dishonesty situation. I really didn't know the story. And Thomas came up with something which I'm pretty sure he got from somebody else. He says, you got to let go of the story. Uh, well, okay. And then I had to concede that I didn't know what the story is. I really didn't. My father left the home when I was about 6 months old. There was quite a story there, but I never really. Turns out he's alive still, and I started looking to try and find him. And I started to investigate this, and I did a little online sleuthing. I stopped just shy of spending real money to do it, but I wanted to share something with you guys. I did send a letter to what I thought was his address, and his wife responded, and here it is. Says, Dear Stephen, to begin with, you have contacted your dad, Stephen J. Whitcomb. He is alive and well. How you found him is a miracle. We have been trying. We have been trying to find you for years. That one always gets me. It gets even better. Turned out that the man was bipolar, and in those days they didn't even know what to do with that. He actually was a guinea pig at Stanford in the 70s for the lithium trials. And here's what's funny. I think, and although it's impossible to put a number to it, he may have helped more people than all of us put together. Kind of proud of the old guy. Right now, what we are, and I got a chance to get to know him a little bit, spend a little time with him. And here's the kicker. I had sponsored 3 bipolar men over the years, right? And every one of them had me going, dear God, what do you do with these guys? And I suppose I was about as successful as anybody else. And I could finally see that I could see the hand of God in this all the way. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I want to spend some time with this power. get to know him a little better while I still can, because clearly he's working on a much longer, time frame that I can wrap my head around. And what it did is I think it gave me a little patience to say, okay, God, we'll do this in your time. I don't have to like it, but I need to learn how to do it. And so maybe I started to learn a real patience. And anyway, and then shortly after all this, of course, the pandemic hits, and that really stalled out a lot of things. But some pretty interesting things happened. I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to Sam for starting this workshop. It got a lot of us together at a time where we had way too much time on our hands, a lot of us. And it was really fun getting him to speak at my home group and just being able to say, hey, thank you for what you did. And anyhow, this guy, Devin, who got FOTS New York going, showed us what we could do on Zoom. And I got to see him in Arizona, and he really a neat guy, interesting guy. And so many others. I just owe them so much. And I love the workshop here. One of the first guys I heard was this guy, Kurt Z. There is a point to this. And Kurt, I thought he's really interesting. And then this gal, Erica, who Tom says is somebody I should know, he says, hey, she says, hey, he'll be speaking at my home group. I said, okay, that's cool. And so now I'm starting to get to know the Full Measures crowd out in Cedar Rapids, which is where I would move if I could. Anyway, just in case you're wondering, I can do me some Iowa sobriety, by gosh. Anyway, I thought, wow, this Kurtz guy was really interesting. And then I thought, okay, if they're going to get somebody like him, I'm going to hang around and see who they pick next week. This should be interesting. And next week was Debbie S. from Richmond. And I fell in love with speaker meetings all over again. I had never in my life, I'm not going to say never, but it had been a long time since I got woke up like that. It's like, and I remember just how much fun this could be. And so I thought, okay, anybody that would have those kind of people for a speaker, I want to see what they're like in their regular meeting. And I've been to like 95% of those Wednesday night meetings since, because that's just how I approach AA. I'm just either I'm there or I ain't. And I just love those guys. Just love them. And anyhow, there's so many bits and pieces, and the things that did jump out to me about the emotional sobriety. And I don't want to poo-poo the essay. It's not my favorite essay, but I don't want to poo-poo the thing, and I don't want to try to make sense of what I can't make sense of. But I will say this: there are a few parts in there that do jump out at me. I have never once had a sponsee say, "The devil with you." I have on a couple of occasions had a sponsee explain to me that I lacked the necessary sensitivity to help them. I still think that one's hilarious. Do I strike you as a particularly wound up guy? Anyhow, but isn't that interesting? And you let that go. Well, you need to do what you need to do, right? But isn't there something even more going on there? It's like, I'm enough. You don't got to love me. Oh, I hope that didn't sound too much like therapy, but it just kind of jumped out at me. It's like, oh, I had a really fun awakening in reading the book one time at this book study. We were going over the resentment inventory, and I just had an awakening. It says, to conclude that others were wrong were as far as most of us ever got. And I thought, wait a minute, I know this tune. I'm right, you're wrong, screw you. It's like, well, yes. And here's the thing. One of the reasons I really stay away from talk radio is they reinforce that stuff. We're right, they're wrong. Nobody's listening to anybody. I don't want that. But what AA offered me was a bigger world than that. Don't just go around reinforcing your prejudices, but take in some new information, sit with it. And maybe your world can get a little bigger. And see, that's what kind of happened with me and my approach to AA for a long time. I really didn't like being in Nashville, and for a lot of reasons. I just really didn't like it here. And that's on me. There are wonderful people here. And if I haven't made the friendships I could have made, that's on me, not them. They certainly tried to help me in every way. I was the standoffish one, and that was some really interesting inventory. If I'm right, you're wrong, screw you is the way it works. It becomes really interesting. Where am I holding myself back? And those become really interesting inventories. And there was some other stuff, something that really helped me. And I think maybe that's a piece of emotional sobriety is maybe God just keeps getting bigger. Maybe I don't know. Uh, it's so funny. He talks about a place in the bright sunshine, and where maybe all this can just sit for a while, and maybe I can just spend time with my God, even though my problems are not all solved. I don't understand everything. I don't have all the answers. Maybe, and I like that a lot. Um, but the one thing I don't do is I try not to put spiritual stuff in a past tense, like now that I understand this, I'll never have to relearn it. That's just not been my experience with the spiritual life. I have to keep going back around to keep this experience fresh. And I got to tell you, God has a really, really fun sense of humor with me. I've been on a hiring committee for police officers, and if you know my history, that is comic. That is true comedy. I'm like, okay, God, you're just messing with me now. Um, I'm currently sponsoring a chaplain. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And he is so interesting. Turns out augury means some really interesting stuff, but that's for another time. Anyway, and what gosh, where was I going with that? I don't know. That's in there somewhere. But yeah, tell you what, let me just check one note here and then I'll yeah, I did want to share one thing, and then I think maybe I'll open it up because you guys are so amazing. Uh, I, and I've really loved the presenters who just could leave it, just not bring a lot of pretense to it. I'm not capable of that, but they did real well. Anyway, there's something I found out about myself, personality wise, is that there is no standard personality type. I really believe in the Enneagram. It's worth a look if just to see, hey, what kind of personality type are you generally, and what pushes and pulls you especially. And something that Don shared, and I picked up on immediately, is he said that inventory is not about finding out who you are; it's about finding out who you're not. And then as you start to who you're not starts to go away, who you are starts to show up. And I've since learned that then you've got to be it as lovingly and authentically as you can manage, right? And that has been just such an awakening. I've just got to go be it. And I've come to realize I am not anybody special. And I'm in a city that, I joke about this, but there's some truth to it. I say that the three major exports in Nashville are country music, goo clusters, and AA speakers. And we have got some good ones. They are nice people, all of them. All of them. They're nice people. They really are. And I know I'm just not, I don't have that kind of personality type. I mean, you get Tom and I together, we have a lot of laughs, but he's a Pied Piper personality. I'm a, you know, slow, steady type personality, and there's nothing wrong with it. I finally got comfortable with this. I can't be anything other than what I am. And now the question is, can I do it with a little more love, a little more service in the love, and a little more love in the service? And Tom gave me so many fun things to play with. One of them I really loved was, you know how in step 10, it says we must carry a vision of God's will into all of our activities. And then it doesn't really say what that means. That annoys me, but Tom helped out. He said, hey, why don't you take all of the bedevilments on page 52, put them in God's hands and say, what would that look like if God really had this? And so I could start to play around with, that's a vision for how God would want me to behave. And what really came out of it was I would practice the pause. And one of the great things that Samuel gave me when he was still alive, he says, man, it's all about the pause. And I've come to really believe that. I had a really good pause last night. You'd have been so proud of me. I would have been completely justified in going, you cannot talk to me like that. And it just wasn't there. It's like, wow, I don't think this has much to do with me. Maybe I need to do some listening here. And I did. Okay. So that's God doing for me what doesn't come natural. It just doesn't. But yet the power is there, if I will continue to continue. And I guess I could probably go on in a lot of different ways, but there's one word that he used that I really have never been wowed about, and he uses the word only in this essay. He also uses the word only in the chapter We Agnostics. It says that it's only there that he may be found. And then it says something in there that, it's only by such that, we get better spiritually, what have you. And I don't like to use the word only because that's putting limits on God's grace. And I don't believe that's a good approach. I don't believe it. I believe that God is bigger than any box I can put him in ever. That's what I really, truly believe. So I just don't use words like only. I don't talk about spiritual stuff in the past tense. Just because it doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not trying to make anybody happy. I'm just trying to do this thing in an authentic way that makes sense to me. Anyway, I wish I could. I wish I could tell you that my life has been this nice steady progression, and in some ways, I guess it has, and in some other ways, there was some real heartbreak. I really thought I was going to be in Philadelphia a couple years ago. I had a plan, and it was a good one. My wife was going to go to work for Johnson and Johnson, make a great deal of money, and I had it in mind that we'd adopt a little. So many displaced kids. I said, let's go adopt one. I was so ready for that. My wife and I are childless. I didn't really go into that except to say that I fell in love with the exact wrong person at the exact wrong time more than once, and it took a lot of years. It took a lot of years away. That's all I need to tell you. And I got married at 36. I've stayed married. I'm 54 now, which is not very old to some of you. Thank you. I really thought, why not? Maybe I can go back to school too, maybe finally get that master's degree that has been so elusive, maybe this. And we actually went out there and we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. We came back to Nashville. Everything's been fine. And I just want to throw in one last thing and then I'm going to shut up. We came back to Nashville, and June the 14th of 2021, I turned 36 years sober. We paid off our mortgage, and I met my biological father for the first time. And I remember, talking to God later that night saying, now you're just showing off. So, life has been amazing, but there's been some heartbreak and some unanswered questions and some things I really wanted to do that I don't know what the answer is right now. But what I can tell you is that I've never had more fun than I'm having. I've never felt more in the middle, and it's just such a beautiful thing. I'm just sharing with them the way you've shared with me, and I love you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Stephen. Because you're a old hat here, you probably know that we ask, did you call on a few people? I have the option of calling on folk as well. However, if anybody wants to share, if you raise your hand, I'll try to see it in the little thing. I am on my iPad though, not on a computer. So what do you got, Stephen? Who you want to hear from?
I am deeply prejudiced here. I want to hear from Debbie S.
I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic. It's so great to see you, Stephen. I so enjoyed hearing more about you. You know, it's been nice to, I guess I met you on Erica Maynard's meeting, and then you had me speak, and getting to see you at that Fought South. Bob and I just, like, you know, you're just a good pal. And I so enjoyed everything you had to share. The part that really hit me was, and I so relate to it, the dependencies. How do I know? And bit by bit, I'm finding out how dependent I am on things, you know, and I think I will continue to be. But there's some, I kind of like that I don't know. Because when I try to know, then I end up in my head, and it gets scary. And I come up with all kinds of stories and scenarios and nightmares, and just, you know, kind of today showing up, doing the best I can with what I have, and you know, be staying on the spiritual path. You know, it will be revealed to me. It always has. That my past experiences, I've seen my dependencies through the years, you know. And I'm sure that if I stay on this path, that will continue to happen. Sometimes I don't know I'm doing it. But what I do know is I am grateful for the fellowship, for the spiritual steps, for this group. A lot of the people I've gotten to know, you know, just like you, we're kindred spirits for sure. But we just love you. Bob's here. He was listening. He had to go check someone in, but we just hope to see you again soon. And you've made a big impact on our life. And thank you so much. Love you.
How about some more of the Richmond folks, Sarah?
I'm Sarah, I'm an alcoholic. And wow, I'm just, you know, the thing that is really attractive about you is your humility. Like, you're just so genuine, you know. We have a gift, right? We didn't earn it. It just, you know, it's a gift of grace, like you said. And to be able to carry the message and try to like walk this path and believe, and really believe in our hearts that it's working and it's going to work. You know, it's just a beautiful thing. And coming back into recovery, I had 5 years and I had gone out, and coming back this time, like, I really understand that. How do I put this? I realized that I have to do the things, right? I have to do the disciplines. I just have to do my best at this, because I don't have any false illusions anymore that I've got this, you know, that I'm going to be cured of alcoholism. If I get 5 years or 10 years or 20 or 30, you know, it's like, I still have to do the same. I still have to do the things to stay sober. And each day is a new day. Each day is a new gift to me. And it's a new day to practice these principles. It's like, I read some great C.S. Lewis quote about, you know, every day is a day that I have to rely on God like nothing has happened yet. So, you know, to keep that same faith going, because I don't know, you know, I have so many thoughts around why I went back out and drank again, but it's like, it just comes back to, I guess I understand my powerlessness, and I'm really tired, so I don't think I'm making any sense, but just know I really loved your share. You have such a beautiful spirit, and it's just, it's really unattractive when you hear from people in the program that have a lot of time, and there's, you know, there's like this arrogance can come with it, and this, like, you know, this like pointing directions and stuff. And it's just like, it's not, it never resonates well with me. And I really hear people like you really inspire me, and you act like a guiding light, like you give me something to work for, like I want to be like you, kind of thing. So thank you for your powerful message.
All right, MT.
Hi there. God, that was a great share. Thank you, Stephen, so much. I was very touched and moved with your story about your father. and how you were able to see how there was like a blueprint and all the little slots on how it's all fitting together. You know, the longer I'm sober, the more I see that I really don't have to worry too much about what's ahead of me. I think it's going to be shown to me. My main thing is just to try to stay focused and doing the drill, and hopefully staying awake to see what's happening. I think what you said about how the pandemic came about and all of a sudden there's new life in your program, where a lot of people, I don't think, would be able to see it from that angle. And yet we here in this program seem to have been able to connect. I think I talked about this before, but this year on the international, on June 10th, I was journaling and just really started to reflect on how when I came in, AA was 38 years old and now it's 87 years old. And to see, I was just reflecting, we were talking about it before the program, about how some of us have gone to the internationals. My first one was in New Orleans. It was the 45th International. And through the years, and I'm my big thing about the international, when I came in, the first couple that I went to, there were no cell phones. So we talked to each other. I really have a thing about that. Maybe I should do a little work on that. Anyway, but I'm grateful that I saw how it was so touching to see 26,000 people in New Orleans, and I think there was 30-something thousand up in Toronto. And to see how this program had grown, and then reflecting that the 85th, we did not have the opportunity to meet in Detroit. And yet, even today, it's international, every Zoom meeting just about that I'm on, that there isn't somebody from another part of the world that is present, and how quickly that was put together. I was in on that New York one that Devin did that was profound. The energy that came out of that wonderful conference he put together, and how quickly we all started to gather and still do. So, and not that I think things are different now. I think there is new energy that's happening. I think we're all starting to meet each other. Like it says, a vision for you. We'll find people who have the same solution, and we'll walk shoulder to shoulder to escape disaster together. And there's not so much hierarchy that I used to see before. I think everybody is realizing that if we have this solution, we all need each other in order to move forward and to grow up. You know, if I'm not in a meeting, I'm believing what's going between my ears. I'm not hearing anything that's really new. And I need people in order to be able to get through things. Just in the last few days with the things that have happened to me, I wake up and life has had a different thing that's been going on. I have a very, very dear friend. Please keep her in your prayers. She's usually on here. Her name is Jackie, and she had a real shift yesterday. And so I was really grieving. Some of us that know Jackie and love Jackie, and I have people I can reach out to. Now, as a grief counselor, I do grief. But at the same time, I live and I understand what's happening. And so when two of these little kittens trapped themselves in the drop trap last night at 10:30, And I was at 10:30 with another woman trying to get him into another trap. And then bringing them today, it was just a whole bunch of confusion about how to get all this stuff done. And I was driving and all of a sudden I started to laugh and I said, Jackie, have you diverted this so I can't grieve the way you know? And so this, just before this meeting, I'm in contact with her daughter and I wrote her daughter and said, you've not been out of my mind, all of you out there. She lives in Washington State. And I said, I just want to check in and see what's happening. And I want you to know I'm with you in spirit. And her daughter called me about 5 minutes later and she says, do you want to talk to Mom? I said, I sure do. And I can't begin to tell you, even though she wasn't able to do this the last day or so, we had a nice little talk. I need people to know that. So I called 4 people. I have what I call protective custody. I have people I can call when I need something. And there was a lot of confusion and I had 3 or 4 people that I could just be me with. Because sometimes I don't want to go through things alone like I used to go through things. I want to share where I'm at. That doesn't mean that I need any pity or anything. I just need to share where I'm at. And I was still able to get those 2 little kittens spayed. So I'm grateful they're sitting here on the table just behind here. I loved your share. I loved your authenticity about it. I love the idea that we're just doing this a day at a time, that we're waiting for the grace, that we're open to hearing different views. And I had sponsorship that I continue to honor. I remember when they passed, I realized, I said, the only way I can thank you, Bevan Hugh, is to carry the message you gave me. And it sounds like you're doing that for your sponsor. So thanks, guys.
Okay, Don, why don't you pick a few? Hey, Don, you're muted.
That's too bad. I made a good joke. I said I was going to pick Rick because he's going to be non-systemic with us. Can you hear me, Rick?
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate the heads up as a reminder that you were going to be here tonight. And I was glad to be able to listen. And you spoke directly to me, and I appreciate that so much about confirmation bias. If it doesn't confirm what I think I already know, then I avoid it. And I'm trying to learn to be more open. And apparently I'm starting to get a bit of a reputation about non-systemic. So I'll be glad to look at that and know that I don't have to be afraid, and it's okay to feel whatever the feeling is. And I felt it strong whenever you talked about finding a way that your father's struggles were actually part of God's plan. That's difficult. That is so very difficult. And to know that the Creator can take what it seems to be a total disaster and something that I would be very negative about personally, to use it for the greater good. And I see that in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I see it with my teachers, my mentors, and my peers, and the people that have just rocked me. Whenever I was the unruly kid, they just rocked me, telling me to calm down. And some of the ones that told me I had some ruffians. You mentioned the Arkansas and Oklahoma contingency. They were rough with me. They told me things like, that's none of your business. And I was shocked, but now I understand fully it's true. So I look for opportunities to say, it's none of my business, to try to reset the balance for emotional sobriety. I spend way too much time regarding things that are none of my business. And what I heard from you tonight was the simplicity of tend to your own knitting, try to take care of your own emotional sobriety and find ways to help others. And yeah, I'm all about honoring the people that were mentors for us. I want to honor them without trying to be them. That's the fine line for me. I want to honor them, but Elvis impersonators have their place in Vegas performing weddings, but Elvis impersonators in AA is not nearly as entertaining. So I want to be genuine and true and pass through what they taught me without trying to present myself as the next wave or generation, because I am not. I can never live up to the shoulders of the men and women that carried me. I can just try to pass along in gratitude my own experience with what they tried to teach me. And it was a great opportunity to listen to you tonight, Steve. I look forward to continuing to cultivate our friendship. And thank you for the lesson in being non-judgmental about people that were raised differently than we are. And a reminder to everybody, pull the rope in the same direction and we'll all arrive simultaneously. It doesn't have to be competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Is there anybody that wants to share? If you can get your hand up, I'll see you in the thing. Meanwhile, can we hear from Belinda out of Nashville, please?
Sure. Hey, everybody, and hey, Stephen. It's funny because I was like, I'm sure I know who Stephen T is. And I was like, oh, it's Philip. I still think your name is Philip. You were there when I first got, my home group. You were on the porch every time and every weekend. And we had a lot of discussions, and it was, it was just important. And I realize now, just being, how much of a service just being there is for people, just even now, just going back, I just had 11 years last week. And even I think I was at 3 months or something, and somebody said something like that to me because she only had one. And she's, you're such an inspiration. Well, you're an inspiration, and a lot of people were inspirations that were there every time. And I don't know why. There's got to be a Philip in your family somewhere, or they were going to name you that. I don't know, but I appreciate it. I think it's interesting how I go back and look at our lives and how it plays, and how we always had a higher power there, and whether we knew it or not. And I'm glad I'm kind of sad. I had a jail commitment, but they were on lockdowns, I guess, and didn't show up. So I got to come on, and I'm glad I did. Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Belinda. Joanna?
I'm Joanna. I'm an alcoholic, not a dog, even though I look like a dog. And thank you, what's your name? Hang on, Stephen, for your share. And what I want to thank you above all is for your humility, because I thought your share was very humble, and I really, really appreciate that, because I think that's one of the principles that we need to cultivate, self-honesty and humility. Now, I also appreciated you talking about not knowing, because to me, that's step 3 right there. Step 3, I like to practice not knowing, trusting, and surrendering. And so it's something that, and I believe in living the steps, not just checking them off of a list. So yeah, not knowing is something I can practice every day, and I need to practice every day. There's no days off in this program. We do this all the time, and I can't rest on my laurels from yesterday. I have to do it all over again today. So thank you for your humility. Thank you for your share.
Thank you, Joanna. So I thought, I stopped my video. Oh, well. I was listening to you, Stephen, and the thing that stood out to me that you talked about, and I agree with the energy of, I don't know everything. I'm still on the journey. There's more to be learned constantly, and I loved, you started out by saying, and I wrote it down immediately, this is good. It's a pretty great story unfolding minute by minute. And you mentioned prejudice, and being a bit of a bookworm, I looked up the word. I have one of those little big book things where it tells you where's what and all that. And in We Agnostic, it uses the word prejudice 7 times. Then it talks about us having to set it aside, re-examine, which you mentioned, maybe I need to re-examine this. And really, my experience currently is waking up to a day and not setting the agenda, actually doing what the big book says, which is considering my plans for the day, not arranging them. And it's been a real eye opener for me to not prejudice my day, because if I'm doing that, I have a pretty guaranteed shot that God's not going to be involved in it if I've already set the agenda. And I just loved what you said. There's a great story unfolding minute by minute. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not involved in the minute by minute story. I'm involved in the story over here. I have 17 things that I want to get done, but I've been very much graced over the course of the last, month, presence, like literally being present. And this is new material for me. It may be getting a higher vibration of that. It's not to say that I've been spinning around. I've been sober long enough to have had great things happen in my life. So it just is, but over the course of the past month, I've had more. And it's been pretty phenomenal to really look at that great story unfolding minute by minute. And this morning I got up, I've lost a picture of my husband and I. And when I was grieving, I hid a lot of things from myself because I couldn't stand the pain of seeing them. And I would just hide stuff from myself. And this morning in my meditation, someone said, clean out your closet. And I was like, I'm not cleaning out the closet. You know, too much. So, but I wrote it in my little 2-way idea thing, and it's unfolding day by day. I cleaned out the closet. Guess what I found? I found the picture. I've been looking for it for like a month, and it was in this closet, hidden behind something, because I hid it from myself. And those treasures that I can find, and if I can set aside the prejudices that I have about the day that's coming, like maybe I could just do what's next. I don't like that whole next right thing, because I'm a perfectionist. So if I'm like, next right thing to me means I got to figure out what's right. Just what's next, not the right thing, is really the best thing for me. I really appreciated your talk. And now I'm gonna start, let's see, who can I, John, you read? I'm sure you got something out of it. So let's hear you share.
Guys, you got me on point today. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your talk, and I know that you come to our Sunday meetings sometimes, and it's great to hear you here. I really did too connect with that thought about your dad and being able to find him, and thinking that simple thought that, man, he might have helped more than all of us combined. You know, we just never know our purpose, and even we're in the middle of it, you know. And as far as Bill's letter goes, I am like right there in the middle of that letter, and in my sobriety and choices in my life and things that are going on. So being able to read that is a good reminder, because I'm getting pretty jammed up lately about some things, and you know, God keeps slamming the brakes on me, because that's how it rolls. You know, he takes away my car. Usually it's a car crash, or now the car's stolen. It's like it's something, you know, and to slam the brakes on me. But that St. Francis prayer is really close to my heart. There was a time early on in my sobriety that I had to serve some 90 days in jail, and I went in sober. I don't know, maybe 30 days sober, and they put you in like a holding area prior to putting you in the general population, and you hear all this racket on the other side of the wall, and you wonder what's going on in there. And I knew that I'd put a lot of money in that pink can, so I got in that room and I said, hey, where's my AA book? Where's my big book? You know, and the guard said, maybe you'll get one later. And this younger guy comes out of his cell. I haven't been in mine yet. And he hands me the 12 and 12. And he says, are you looking for this? And I said, no, but this is perfect. This will do. And I went into my new cell and I sat down and looked around, and this is my new environment. Holy moly, I'm like a rat in a cage. And I said, okay, God, what do you want me to read? And I opened the book, and it was the St. Francis prayer. And it blew my mind, and actually really pissed me off. You know, I'm like, really? In here? You know, do you know where I am? Do you know where I am? You know, you know, but I carried that with me in there, and I stayed out of trouble. And I have this really bad haircut and bald on top, you see. And at the time, my hairline kind of went like that, and I was bald there. And the guys in the jail started calling me Halo, which I thought was pretty funny. And that was my experience with that prayer, and I got to remember that more. You know, that because in that lies the truth, and it doesn't matter what other people think of me as long as I'm doing the next right thing. You know, it's okay to be. I'm always worried about being judged and what other people are going to think about me. And if I have an important email, I send it to 3 people before I send it to where it goes. I don't trust what you see in me. I don't believe that in me, and that's a really awkward way to go through life. But it's my way right now. And getting back to those basics and being in the middle of a 4th step right now, man, I don't want to write. It's like the pen and the paper are like 2 magnetic poles going against each other. You know, I put the pen and it's like, you know, it's gone. And I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky to be here with all you guys. I'm lucky to get to see you, a lot of you, in a couple of weeks. I'm in the food and beverage chair, and the Y has pulled some crap, so don't come chasing me. Just heads up. And yeah, I love you all, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks.
You can't drop that bomb. Now we're all sitting here squirming like, what are we going to have to eat?
Oh, we're all eating, don't worry.
Okay, Regina Islas from San Francisco. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Stephen, what a beautiful share. There was just so much in it. And I was really struck by the emphasis on learning and growing. I kept hearing that in your share, like you are willing to examine, ask yourself what those old ideas are that you have to get rid of. And, as a process of growing in emotional sobriety. And you also use the phrase God showing off when, you got connected with your dad, finished the payment on the house. And I think you had an anniversary too. I know there was a third thing in there. And, that's the beauty of waking up in recovery is we not only are experiencing these God shots, but we're aware that we're having these God shots and they're happening constantly. And sometimes, they're a big show off like 3 in a row, or sometimes it's a small thing like sharing a smile with someone on a street. I mean, honestly. So thank you so much for a beautiful share and, a great reminder that we are here to learn and grow every moment, every breath. So appreciated being here to hear you, brother.
I am going to call on Rebecca. Oh dear. Well, since you're in Richmond, we got to call on you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rebecca, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Stephen. I shed a tear because, that recognition of those absolute dependencies, and it's becoming aware is delightful, but also very painful. And it's, there's some truths about myself that I can see today that for my life up until this point, I've not been able to see. And you spoke on it. You talked about it. And, you've been sober a long time. And throughout that journey of sobriety, you've found yourself in situations that were not the right situations. And, I've heard the word shared also, humility. And it's evident that just becoming to know yourself with that level of honesty just offers humility at the same time. And it's where I want to be. I want to get to that point, and it's, I thank you very much. You've allowed me to be a little more honest with myself. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, right beside Rebecca is Angela Pica from Florida. So I'm going to go for you.
Oh my. Thank you for noticing me. I just thought I was an unknown at this meeting because I'm only here about 3 times already. I heard of Fellowship of the Spirit New York. They got a whole website with meetings, right? So I'm gonna try and make some of those because I'm from the Bronx. I'm Angela, I'm an alcoholic. And I started to get, at 10 years sober, I felt really weird. And my sponsor says to me, it's emotional sobriety. You're feeling that you need emotional sobriety. And, I started to do more meetings, more step work, more big book work. Recently, I did the big book step study with a big book step study sponsor. And we went with, Stephen, you talked about the bedevilments. We talked about that and the selfishness, the turnarounds, the 4th column. And there's always an opportunity for growth and to be humble, is like Bill W. talks about maturity and balance. We were so immature as drinkers, You know, when I think of the immature things I did, I cringe. It's like, how could anybody have liked me or wanted me around? It was just terrible. And today I have a more mature way of looking at life. And, you know, I like that quiet place and bright sunshine. Sometimes with my dog, she loves to sit out, and it's always sunny out where we sit. I just get a little part of the roof shading my chair, and I sit in the shade. And she comes behind me and sits with me, and she always wants to be with me. If I'm on my recliner, she comes and lays down on my lap. And I'm like, this is a miracle, you know, that some animal wants to warm up to me, or some my family members come, and we are so at peace. You know, God granted me peace in my family. And I was in a lot of turmoil when I was using. And you know, I love living life like in the big book says, you know, there's a prayer for when you wake up, there's a prayer for when you go to bed, there's a prayer for anger, there's a prayer for there's a prayer for anger, there's a prayer for well, I forgot my train of thought. Anyway, there's a prayer for everything, you know, and doing God's will. And and you know, when I wake up in the morning, I do consider my plans, and I always say, as your will, God, not mine. And sometimes my plans change, but I know they're always going to be good for me because God's in charge. And let's see, I like that Stephen says God is bigger than any box I could put him in. You know, I started a God box several years ago. And then I looked at all the things in that God box, and God took care of every one of them. And I recently had a 60th birthday party. I'll be 64 this year. And the theme was skulls, because I love skulls. And somebody made me a box to put the birthday cards in. And it's all covered in skulls. And I saved the box, took out the birthday cards, and now that's my God box. But I only put one thing in there. And I was privy to having that one thing come true just recently at a picnic I was at. And, you know, somebody appeared out of my life from the past, and I prayed that they would get recovery and healing. And that's what this person shared with me, that she's going through recovery again. She's got healing. So God does answer prayers, and the prayers are really our communion with our higher power. So I have to rely on a higher power, because I know I'm just an arm's way away from a drink. And sometimes the only defense is that higher power. And I definitely have to give it to him my all. And he takes everything away from me that I want to be less of, and gives me everything I want to be more of. Thanks, Stephen, for a great share. I enjoyed it.